Well, you've heard of Book of the Month, and you've heard of Book of the Day, which was something that my partner and I perpetrated on society. Well, now it's time for Books of the Week, and of course, seated across from me virtually is our book critic at large. Boy, it feels good to say that again, Steve Donahue. Welcome, welcome.
Hello, everybody.
Here we are, the half-hour format. Surely our audience has better things to do with their lives.
Yes, you think. Yes. I guess both of us are just ethically compelled not to say back and better than ever. We have no such plans.
Was that on the docket?
No, that was not on the docket. We don't have that in the budget, I'm afraid.
No, certainly not. Certainly not. Oh, yes.
In commemoration of this esteemed event where we're teaming up again, I was reminded of a passage of great poetry that I thought I would share with our viewers. At the thought of teaming up with you again, a passage of great poetry came to mind. Let me see if I can recall it from memory. And so you're back from outer space. I just walked in to find you there, and you've got that look upon your face. I should have changed that stupid lock. I should have made you give your key. If I'd have thought for just 1 second, you would be back to bother me. I don't know why that came to mind.
Let me just.
I know.
Well, I didn't know you were going there this morning. So, gotta warn a guy if you're going to do that. Speaking of all of this being made possible by our friends, the friends of the Cedarburg Public Library, I found in the book sale this morning. I thought I would fish it out and talk about it. This is a monumental work of literature. This is Mickey Spillane's The Delta Factor.
God, look at that cover. Oh, goodness.
I think it's a movie tie-in. Apparently, it was a film in 1970. This is Christopher George and the lovely Yvette Mimieux.
Yes, and somewhere in heaven, me sainted Ma is saying, "You're gonna dress like that in public."
Can it, Mom? I mean, you're going to like the back cover. This is my favorite line here. The Delta Factor. This book is apparently, I'm going to get through this, fist slamming, sex snarling action. Now, I have a question for you, Steve. I've heard of snarling sex, but I've never heard of sex snarling. They flip-flopped it. Sex snarling.
Spend some time in a Boston Irish Catholic marriage. You'll learn about sex snarling pretty quick.
I'm 53 and I have not lived even nearly a complete life, apparently.
Yeah,
so,
you take somebody from Southie and you start whispering them sweet nothings, they're going to say, "What, you got a throat problem or what?"
If you haven't,
I can't make work.
If you haven't figured it out by now, I am in the very moral, saintly Wisconsin, whereas my esteemed book critic is in the mean streets of Boston. And somehow this works. So
let's not go that far.
Well, it's only the first episode. I'm trying to be.
It hasn't been proven to work yet.
It's true. We are the anointed sovereigns of sighs and groans, aren't we? So, but the format, for those of you tuning in, we do talk about books here. It's in our title, so we should at some point. And we're going to do a little tour of the library or even a bookstore. We're going to start in the nonfiction area, move on over to the fiction area, and then the remainder of the show, all bets are off, baby. So we'll see how it goes. So going into the nonfiction area, I would like to tell you, Steve, that most of the people who linger too long in our nonfiction section of our library tend to wear leisure suits and smell like salami. So I just wondered if that's, that's okay.
Well, we did mention Wisconsin, right?
Cheddar.
Is that announcement really necessary?
Oh boy! So
look at the bottom left drawer of your desk right now.
An exotic collection of fine meats, I'm sure. So what is our title that you selected for us this week?
Our nonfiction title to kick this off is one of the first full-length biographies of Britain's King Charles III.
In the news a little bit lately.
In the news a little bit lately, yes. I have to say, just as a backstage note, we made this choice before.
Not much before.
No, not much before. No, the king had a routine prostate exam, and it revealed cancer. And the speculation immediately, the tone of the palace's revelation made the speculation immediately that the way they revealed it means that it isn't prostate cancer.
Yeah.
That it was something else that was found. And Charles is extremely old. That could be trouble. And it automatically set off waves of reverential hysteria in the royal watching press in the UK. But my first thought was, this guy can't catch a break. He just can't catch a break. In his whole life, he just can't catch a break. He's trained for only one job. He has to wait 70 years to get it. He's forced to marry a beautiful woman in an obvious bad match. He's vilified when he stays extremely close and affectionate with the woman he actually loves.
Are we talking about Charles now or me? Hang on. I'm just checking in. All right, go ahead.
Then he finally becomes king. He's mocked from day one, from minute one, because a little video clip surfaces of him yelling at the staff. And then what? Months after he takes the crown, he's diagnosed with cancer. I mean, what more could happen? You hate to say it. The last word you want to call a monarch of England is a schmuck. He just doesn't seem to be able to catch a break. He's just, I picture that when he goes in for a follow-up appointment for his cancer diagnosis, he gets hit by a truck on his way out.
Yeah, right. You know, it's one of the few times I can say I would rather be me than a monarch. I'm actually okay with, it's sad too, because I had a slew of really tasteless jokes about Charles prior to, and now I got rid of all of them. I had to burn them last night. It's very sad. This episode could have been side split.
The turn in the news means that this book is already outdated.
Yeah.
This book is The Making of a King, and it's already outdated because it changes everything.
Yeah.
Charles won't be able to do, the royal family has a portfolio of things that they do, boards that they sit on, events that they go to, supermarket openings, that sort of thing. He won't be able to do any of those.
They do supermarket openings? I didn't know
they
that.
did once upon a time. They don't anymore, but they did once upon a time.
Welcome to the A&P.
If you're opening the wing of a new hospital,
sure,
it might be that you would do that. And typically the monarch has the largest portfolio of those kinds of things of anyone in the royal family and of anyone in the so-called firm, and he's not going to be able to do any of those.
No,
and I don't know. The book itself.
I was going to ask, what's the book like here?
Did you mention that you do have access to it at the library?
I feel like it has actually not landed. Has it been pubbed? Because I didn't.
It might not have been published.
I was going to say it's close, and we absolutely will.
For new viewers of Books of the Week, I'm a professional book critic, and that means I'm bombarded with galley copies and review copies all the time, and sometimes I blur on whether or not a book is actually available. So if I'm talking about something as though it's on your local Barnes & Noble table, it might not be.
No,
but
absolutely.
But this same author did a biography of Queen Elizabeth II a couple of years ago, last year, that was, the royal family does not give interviews, and the only way you're going to get any news about them is through backstage communication, which is a fancy way of saying gossip, and gossip is 90% wrong.
Yeah,
and that's all that book was about. His book on Queen Elizabeth II, and to be fair, all books about Queen Elizabeth II were basically gossip. It's just some people take a little bit of gossip and think about it better than others. And his book, A Queen of Our Times, was boring. It was stuff that you could get from the gossip columns of Royalty magazine.
Sure.
You could assemble it yourself. This book has a little more gossip. None of it has any kind of verification to it, but it's a little more gossip about the Queen's final days, her final illness, her final conversations with her family members. Some of it is interesting to think about, but it might as well be fan fiction. but even that, these books on English monarchs, they absolutely trade in their currency, and this is already outdated.
Yeah.
Probably the most significant thing that will ever happen to King Charles III happened after this book was in galleys. So
absolutely. So do you feel like this? Because I think with the current news, this book will probably sell well now. I mean, I don't want to be ghoulish about it.
But to put it in the crassest possible terms, this could not have worked any better for the author.
Right.
The only thing that would have helped his book better is if that truck had Prince Charles. The only thing that would have helped better if the king had died.
What helps?
We don't know. We don't have details about anything. Really.
Tragedy makes superstars out of anybody, doesn't it?
Yeah. I have when our ratings have dipped, I have often thought about you in the parking lot.
Stop sending me scorpions, Steve. I open the box and they get out.
Well, the polling information that we have leads me to think that the audience is largely ambivalent on whether or not that would constitute a tragedy. I don't want to give them what they want and give away the store.
Who will feed my cats? That's all I gotta say.
Well, they were part of the polling.
Their opinions do seem to sway by the hour, don't they?
I myself think if you just use a little common sense inference, the members of the royal family have the best healthcare in the world, and they are. I hate to say this, I hate to make them sound like heating meters, but they are routinely checked. I mean, Queen Elizabeth II lived to a ripe old age. Two of her aunts lived to be 200 apiece. So I'm assuming, in other words, I'm guessing, I'm hoping that King Charles could not have had a serious cancer without it being detected long before now. I'm hoping that it's a polyp of some kind, something that can be dealt with. I mean, men at his age, if they have excellent health care, can live through cancer.
Sure.
Some kinds of cancer.
Yeah.
We'll have to see.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, dealing with the book, it's a fairly oh God, it feels so terrible to say it's a lifeless reading experience. I feel there's no way you can criticize the book now without sounding tasteless. I mean, what am I supposed to say?
Stroll delicately.
It's dead on arrival. It's terminally boring. I can't say any of those things. If you have read, there have been a number of books about Prince Charles.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was Prince until he was, in his 70s. So
sure.
There have been a number of books. Sarah Bradford wrote a really good one. There was one before that called The Man Who Would Be King. A few that were called The Man Who Would Be King. If you take the latest one of those books, that's probably going to do you
a little better off. Yeah.
Well, that and watching the news will be all that you need until a tenor develops in the reign of King Charles, which it hasn't had a chance to do. So once a tenor develops, then once a tone develops, you can then write about that. That's a little boring, but you can do it.
Yeah.
This book doesn't even have that. This book went to galleys when the crown was still cold on his head. So all this basically is the 70-year story of Prince Charles with a final chapter or two, or two.
Absolutely.
So I would say, not to hurt the library circulation, but I would say this is for royalty watchers only.
Sure. Absolutely, which we have plenty of without a problem. Now, is it interesting that perhaps being a 70-year-old prince is kind of embarrassing? I mean, because you think of a prince and you have your, a balloon and like your knickers are out and stuff.
Famously, in recent times, it had only happened once before. Queen Victoria also kept her heir waiting a long time, and he only reigned for 10 years.
Yeah,
and died of cancer. So you just.
It
would be amazing. It would be amazing. It would be something for the record books. It already is. The House of Windsor is already stuff of records. Queen Elizabeth reigned longer than any other monarch.
Sure.
Prince Charles waited longer as Prince of Wales to ascend to the throne than any other Prince of Wales has ever done. If, in addition to those records, Charles were, God forbid, to die in his first year on the throne, that also would be the stuff of record. And then the UK would get King William V, probably for 50 years.
Yeah.
Which
which the UK might want. I mean, I get this feeling because he seems to have a popularity, not the least of which because he's got a chiseled. He actually has a chin as opposed to his dad, who does not. So there's that. I mean, for the most superficial reasons, they may actually. Oh, poor Charles. Oh, William.
Well, the interesting thing is that if William were to be more I think you're right. I think if he were to be king, he would be much more popular. And I think, oddly enough, it would be for the same reasons that his grandmother was. He's reserved. He gives an unchangeable atmosphere. He is not, in other words, much like his brother, who we've dealt with on this show.
Oh, we had a good time with that one. We made sport of Harry, didn't we?
William is not like that.
No.
And that might be, I mean, Charles's popularity ratings are low. They always have been. No one likes him. And again, I'm not meaning to beat the guy when he's down, but William isn't like that. William's popularity ratings have been high, especially in comparison with the explosion in the bratwurst factory that is his brother and his gold-digging wife. So William and his wife and their adorable children have been the very face of respectable monarchy, right. Which neither William's brother nor William's father have always been.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you put that in Wisconsin terms, too, with the explosion of the bratwurst factory. I appreciate that. So thank you so much. All right. Well, that's our nonfiction selection for this week, which, sounds like a middling venture at best, but that's okay because if you never read any mediocre books, you won't know what a good book is. So there we are.
Well, and also just to take a second to remind our readers and maybe some new viewers that's what you can expect here. We are not cheerleading books here.
No. I have one of those shows. It's called New Book Tuesday. We're insufferable cheerleaders on that show.
Here we're making a few critical judgments. I'm reserving most of my critical judgments for my producer's sartorial choices. But I do allow some of them to go to books. You're wearing that?
With a better shirt on. This was purchased in 2017. It's the newest piece in my wardrobe. Anyway, let's saunter on over to the fiction collection where the cool kids are. Speaking, I think we have the pinnacle of cool if we're talking about someone's checkbook. So who's our author this week, Steve?
Well, the headline author is James Patterson.
I've heard of him.
You'll put the cover of the book up on the screen, right?
It's there now as we speak, more than likely.
I'm blurring on the name of his co-writer this time around.
Well, because he has 900 of them.
Right. He has 900 of them. For readers that he's the best-selling author in the world, and he has been for years, so I don't imagine there are any readers who don't know who he is. But Patterson has a factory. He comes up with an idea or a concept, or maybe some of his people do, and depending on how much it grabs him, he will either write a bunch of it himself, or he will go to another writer who are carefully vetted by his staff. He will go to another writer and say, well, here's my idea. I'd like to chip in. I'd like to talk to you about it, but you're going to do most of the writing. In exchange for that, he doesn't hide their names. Their names are prominent on the cover. He has started many literary careers.
Prominent, Steve? It's almost parentheses sometimes.
It's not missing.
No.
It's not absent completely. And there are some very big best-selling named authors who are institutions in the literary world who haven't written a word of their own prose in decades. We don't hear anything about that.
That's true.
And Patterson's willing to admit it in interviews. He's willing to help them with agents, contracts. He has made careers doing this, and his fans don't seem to mind.
No, and I can't disparage the guy much. He has done a lot for literacy in this country. Dumps a lot of money. Yeah.
A lot for literacy programs, a lot for libraries. Yeah. He makes a lot of money, and he spends a lot of money on getting the word out about books, on helping people to read. Every program that you can imagine, you go to him with a good cause, he'll cut a check.
Yeah,
he is by all accounts a stand-up guy.
Makes me sick.
And he's not hiding what he's doing. No. So it's a joke that James Patterson doesn't write his own books, but a little of the teeth are taken out of the joke by the fact that it's a program that he wants people to know about.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the name of this particular co-writer, but this particular book is called Holmes, Marple, and Poe.
The audacity.
if you don't know anything about it at all, you're going to look at that title and think, okay, I sort of get the gimmick here. What if you could team up famous detectives from fiction? Sherlock Holmes and Jane Marple, and wait a minute, Edgar Allan Poe is the fictional character.
He reads that whiny emo guy doing there. I don't understand.
What's the emo guy doing here? He reads like a fictional character, but he's not a fictional character. And the reason why you write it that way, the reason why you title it that way, is because Richard Patterson's or James Patterson's
the other one.
His marketing people correctly probably assumed that the large body of readers in America won't recognize the name of Auguste Dupin, who was Edgar Allan Poe's famous groundbreaking detective.
Right.
He's the one who started it all. We think that Holmes did, but he didn't.
Right. Rue Morgue, right? Is that where? Yeah.
It's people might know the name of a case, but they won't know the name of the detective. Whereas they might know Poe. The title is a bit depressing on a commentary about the American reading public.
That's why we don't call Big Mac a hamburger anymore. He's just a Big Mac. Same with Poe here, I guess.
The premise of the book answers an age-old reader desire. Readers have had this desire forever and ever. What if you could put your greatest detectives together? Of course you can't, because they're separated by time, circumstance. It would never happen. It'd be different if, Auguste Dupin and Sherlock Holmes maybe could have teamed up at one point in their careers, but Nero Wolfe can never team up with Sherlock Holmes.
No.
Because they don't overlap in time. Jane Marple can't possibly, and it's unlikely that she would team up with anybody. But what if you could? That is the animating gimmick here. What if you
I want
could?
Crockett and Tubbs to Thomas. I want Thomas Magnum to let's get some big guns in there, shall we?
Oh my God. A novel that could somehow thread the copyright tangle and team up popular TV detectives from 50 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Can you imagine?
Just one more thing. Just one more thing.
Columbo or Magnum PI or Perry Mason. Oh my God.
Have we stumbled upon something here? Let's work on that after the show.
No way that it could be done. There's no way that you could thread those copyrights. Not at all. But the way that Patterson et al. Get around it in this book is to, of course, you can't do it literally. So instead, 3 mysterious characters show up in New York City, present day New York City.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the names they're using. It's pretty clear early in the book that we're supposed to suspect that these aren't their names at all. They don't even appear to have fingerprints on file. No one seems to be able to know. There's an enterprising New York detective. Oddly enough, that detective is the most interesting character in the book. But that detective immediately wonders, who are these people? They seem to be able to solve crimes, problems, conundrums that have no clues at all. But we don't know who they are. They are a mystery on their own. And the gimmick here is to try to give each of those characters, Holmes, Marple, and Poe, some essential characteristic of their namesake characters. So what if Sherlock Holmes, what if he is the embodiment of deductive reasoning?
Oh, sure. Okay.
And Marple, what if she is the champion noticer? Jane Marple, it comes from St. Mary Mead, a little village, and she notices everything about everybody. And then there's Dupin, and nobody knows anything about him, so he's going to be the guy who is dogged.
Right.
He will go into the basements. He will break down a door if he needs to, that sort of thing.
The leg man.
The leg man, right. And that would be a great gimmick if it weren't dragged out behind the barn and murdered with a pipe, as it is in this book. Because the one thing you don't want to do, if that's your gimmick, is to fundamentally misunderstand the essence of the 3 characters you're talking about.
So the real crime here is not the crime in the book. The crime is the book, is what you're saying here, Steve.
Yeah, the crime here might be slander, but it's not. But it's not any of the crimes that our characters deal with. They're the victims here. and Patterson and et al., his co-writer, they slather on the layers of plot here. This is when I was reading it, I was thinking, this isn't a multi-layered plot. This is a TikTok plot.
Yes. Yeah.
You no sooner get 5 pages than something dangles over here, and then something dangles over here, and our characters are in the middle of all of it. And if you're if you're a diehard mystery fan who has always wanted, kind of dreamed of how could this happen, uh, you're going to be outraged at how poorly Patterson and his co-writer understand the core of these characters.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
Especially, I have to say, Jane Marple, who's a tough character to understand anyway.
Yes.
You know, she's I think one of the toughest mystery characters to understand.
Oh, the few times I've read a Miss Marple book, I came away with thinking she was actually insane. Like,
right.
Like she's unbalanced.
Right. Right. You don't realize until you read one of her books, you don't realize how much she's cleaned up in the theater productions that you've seen with Dame Margaret Rutherford or Joan Hickson. In the books, no one would listen to her. And even though she has a kind of genius.
Sure.
In this book, though, no, I'm afraid our first two outings for books of the week are not recommendations.
Meaning our ratings are going to be huge. People like this. Sharpen the knife.
The third book is an unqualified recommendation.
Oh, fantastic. What have you in your chest of wonders, sir?
I have what is destined to be a classic, a kid's book called Who Wet My Underpants?
No, I think it's just Who Wet My Pants.
Who Wet My Pants?
Yes, no. I mean, underwear would be involved, yes. But...
Well, for some of us.
It's nice. We learn these things about the characters of the show right away.
Now, yes, and the Wisconsin Communications Bureau has now suddenly got an alert. I thought they were off the air. They've
on the air and without
file.
Underwear. That's our slogan. On the air without underwear.
It's a kid's book called Who Wet My Pants, in which a big, gruff bear notices that a crime has been committed. Someone has wet his pants. And he goes to everyone. He won't take no for an answer. He's not interested in equivocation. What about you, Mr. Porcupine? Did you wet my pants? What about you, Mr. Deer? You look like the type who would wet my pants. And all of his friends are thinking the same thing that our viewers are thinking right now, which is that the suspect is pretty obvious. And yet,
you get to be the detective in this. You get to be.
yes, I get to be Poe.
Like man.
After several of his week-long benders, he himself asks, "Who wet my pants?" When you're reading the book to your child is going to be thinking that exact same thing. And the thing that makes it wonderful is that not only is it fun and funny, of course, right from the title, but also without being didactic, it teaches a lesson about personal responsibility. It's easy for your kid to see when they make preposterous denials if you're reading them this story.
Right.
But it isn't preachy.
No.
They're going to love it. And when they're done with it, they're not going to want to be Bear. They're going to recognize his behavior the next time they try something. Right. The next time they say, well, yes, I was the only one in the room and the flower pot is knocked over, but I didn't do it. Right. They're going to see that book. This is one of the glories of kids' books, and it's so seldom done anymore. I don't know if you've noticed from looking on social media, but we live in a finger-wagging era. You've wagged your finger at me a couple of times just in this episode.
I've turned the odometer over on my finger like 3 times.
Finger-wagging episode where we live in an era where strangers feel compelled by social media, empowered by social media, to simply lecture adults in a parking lot or in a grocery store and film themselves doing it.
Right.
So a kid's book that takes the lesson learning down a notch, allows Who Wet My Pants allows the child to understand the lesson. It doesn't give them the lesson.
Right.
And that's wonderful.
You know, it's nice.
It's so fun that you won't mind reading it 100 times.
Absolutely. And what's lovely too is that the critters that Bear goes and interrogates a little bit, they're very gentle about it. They don't judge him. And so that's
they don't get angry.
Right. So
they don't threaten to sue. They don't get angry about being wrongly accused. Because the suspect is obvious.
Yes, they all know, and yet they don't, lash out. And so, so that's
what about Who Wet My Pants? Is this available in the library?
More than not only available, but wildly popular.
Good. So the library system there, the library where you work, does the lively business in kids' books?
Oh, our children's section is our bread and butter.
Really? Oh, wonderful.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Well,
Yes.
I guess that makes sense, right? Kids' books are expensive.
They are, although you'll find, yeah, no, it's not that bad. In fact, a lot of them are less so. They're probably like 10s and 15s at our cost, as opposed to the adult books actually are a little more. So, but the children's department does have to buy 3 times as much because there's so much that's thrown into the market, and these are, and I hate to accidentally give hope to the world, but they're voracious. The readers that we have, that not all kids are readers, but the ones we have cannot ever be satisfied. They walk out with stacks like
oh
this.
wow, do they really?
Oh, bursting bags. It's something like, Steve coming back from the Brattle on a on a subway, on the Boston subway. These are bursting bags of whatever. So it's pretty wild.
Well, we should end the show on a note of hope.
I think
right?
I think we did.
Our viewers' hopes were crushed when they saw us back on the air. They've been having a rough time getting through this half hour.
Oh, it's that. We're back.
all people watching YouTube channel thinking, I thought
oh, we had a little internet hiccup there. We'll have that from time to time because clearly there's a Independence Day type ship hovering over Boston from time to time that affects their internet. But
or
we have a
alerts have gone off to all the appropriate authorities.
Oh, you suspect NORAD? Okay,
they're back on the air and their jokes haven't changed.
the Klingons are screaming, "Jam their signal! Jam their signal!"
There shall be no peace as long as Books of the Week lives.
The best part of this episode was that actor John Schuck was quoted. That's the best part of our episode. And the other best part of the episode, of course, is this. There we go. Available at Buy the Book, the Friends of the Libraries, the Friends of the Cedarburg Libraries internal bookstore. We have a fully functional bookstore that I know Steve would ravage. We actually would close. So there we go. Folks, it's been wonderful to be back. Steve, thank you as always. Back next Friday to ease you into your weekend or send you into your weekend in some kind of anxiety attack, one or the other. Thank you, sir. We'll see you soon.